The great hiring hall of Koreth Prime was always busy. Thousands of mercenaries from hundreds of species walked through its massive doors every day. They came to find work. They came to find glory. They came to find money. Giant holographic screens floated in the air, showing contracts from every corner of the galaxy. Some paid little. Some paid well. All of them found takers eventually. All except one. The contract from the Valari Collective had been on the board for 23 days. It offered 10 times the standard rate for a simple job. Take back a small moon called Talaxis 7 from human colonial forces. The moon had valuable minerals. The humans had refused to leave. The Valari wanted them gone. Simple work. Huge payment. Yet no one touched it. Kethral stood in the center of the hall and stared at the glowing contract. He was young for a mercenary captain. His blue scales were still bright, not yet faded by age or battle. His species, the Sylvani, were known as excellent soldiers. Fast, smart, deadly. Kethral believed he was the best of them all. He watched as a group of veteran mercenaries walked past the contract. One of them, a massive creature with 4 arms and scars covering his body, actually stepped away from the screen. Like he was afraid of the words themselves. Kethral laughed. These old warriors had grown soft. They had forgotten what it meant to be brave. A heavy hand landed on his shoulder. Kethral turned to face General Mhoruk, his mentor and teacher. The old Torvax was missing one eye and half of his left arm. His gray skin was covered with the marks of 100 battles. He had taught Kethral everything about war. "I see you looking at that contract," Mhoruk said. His voice was low and rough. "Walk away." "Why?" Kethral asked. "It is good money, easy work. The humans are just colonists, farmers and miners. They will run when they see a real army." Mhoruk's remaining eye went dark with something Kethral had never seen in his mentor before. Fear. "I have fought in 47 wars," Mhoruk said slowly. "I have killed enemies from 60 different species. I have never, not once, taken a contract against humans. And I never will." "You are scared of them?" Kethral could not believe it. This was Mhoruk the Unbreakable. Mhoruk the Destroyer. Scared of soft pink creatures from some small planet? "Yes," Mhoruk said simply. "And you should be too." He pulled Kethral to a quiet corner of the hall. Other mercenaries moved away from them, giving them space. Everyone respected Mhoruk. "There are stories," Mhoruk began. "Stories that mercenary captains share only with each other. Stories about jobs that went wrong. About armies that went to fight humans and simply disappeared. Disappeared. No survivors. No bodies. No messages. No explanation. Just silence." Mhoruk's voice dropped even lower. 3 years ago, the Cressian Empire sent 2,000 of their best soldiers to remove a human farming colony from a planet they wanted. Those soldiers never came back. The Empire sent a fleet to find them. The fleet found nothing. No sign of battle. No graves. No prisoners. The humans were still there, working their farms like nothing had happened. When the fleet demanded answers, the humans just smiled and said they had no idea what the Empire was talking about. Kethral felt a small chill run down his spine, but he pushed it away. Old stories. Legends meant to scare young soldiers. "The humans call their planet a death world," Mhoruk continued, ignoring him. "Do you know what that means? It means everything on their planet tries to kill them. The animals, the plants, the weather, even the tiny creatures too small to see. They evolved in a place of constant death. It made them into something different. They are soft," Kethral insisted. "They have no claws, no armor, no venom. They are weak." Mhoruk grabbed Kethral's arm with surprising strength. "They are none of those things. The humans do not fight wars the way we do. They do not meet you in battle. They do not face you with honor. They wait. They watch. They learn. And then they erase you." He released Kethral and stepped back. "The humans have a saying. They call it overkill. They do not simply defeat their enemies. They make sure their enemies can never fight again. They take no chances. They leave nothing behind." Kethral pulled his arm away angrily. "I am not a coward, old man. I will take this contract. I will gather the greatest mercenary force this galaxy has ever seen. And I will prove that humans are just another species to be conquered." Mhoruk stared at him for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Then you will die. Or worse. Worse than death?" The humans let some survivors go, Moruk said. They let them go on purpose, so they can return and tell others what they saw. Those survivors never fight again. They cannot. They have seen something that breaks them forever. Keithrel turned away from his mentor and walked toward the contract board. He reached up and pressed his hand against the glowing screen. The contract accepted his signature. He was now bound to the job. Behind him, he heard Mhoruk say one final thing. The humans do not fight wars, young one. They conduct erasures. Remember those words. They will be the last true thing you ever learn. Keithrel did not look back. Within 2 weeks, he had assembled 3,000 of the best mercenary soldiers in the galaxy. They had the finest weapons, the strongest armor, the fastest ships. They were ready to crush some simple human colonists. As his fleet jumped into hyperspace toward Talaxis 7, Keithrel smiled. Soon, he would be famous. Soon, everyone would know his name. He was right about that, but not in the way he hoped. The fleet came out of hyperspace and Talaxis 7 filled the viewscreen. It was a small moon, gray and brown, with patches of green where the human colonists had built their farms. Keithrel stood on the bridge of his command ship and studied the world below. Report, he ordered. His sensor officer, a thin creature with too many eyes, bent over his screens. Sir, I am not detecting much. Minimal power signatures, no orbital defense platforms, no military vessels. The settlements appear mostly empty. Keithrel felt his confidence grow. The humans had probably fled when they heard his fleet was coming. This would be even easier than he thought. Sir, another officer spoke up. We are receiving a transmission. Put it through. A voice filled the bridge. It was calm, unhurried, speaking perfect galactic common with a strange accent. You have entered contested space. You have 12 standard hours to withdraw. This is your only warning. That was all. The transmission ended. Keithrel laughed. His officers laughed with him, though some of them seemed nervous. They send us warnings? They should be begging for mercy. Begin landing operations. I want troops on the ground within the hour. The landing went smoothly at first. Dropships carried soldiers down to the surface near what looked like an abandoned mining town. The buildings were empty. The streets were silent. Keithrel's troops spread out and secured the area without meeting any resistance. But something felt wrong. Keithrel could not explain it. The air seemed heavy. The shadows seemed too dark. His soldiers moved carefully, weapons ready, jumping at small sounds. These were veterans who had fought across the galaxy. They should not be scared of empty buildings. That night, they set up camp outside the town. Guards took their positions around the perimeter. Keithrel retired to his command tent and reviewed the next day's plans. Everything was going perfectly. Then the reports started coming in. Sir, Guard Post 7 is not responding. Keithrel frowned. Send someone to check. 10 minutes later. Sir, Guard Post 7 is empty. No sign of the guards. And Guard Post 12 is also not responding. By morning, 37 soldiers had vanished. Their posts were empty. Their weapons were gone. There were no bodies, no blood, no signs of struggle, no screams in the night. They had simply stopped existing. Keithrel stood at one of the abandoned posts and felt real fear for the first time. The ground showed no footprints except those of his own soldier. The sensors had recorded nothing. It was as if something had reached down from the sky and plucked his guards away like picking fruit from a tree. Expand the perimeter, he ordered, keeping his voice steady. Double all guard posts. I want constant communication checks every 5 minutes. His soldiers obeyed, but he could see the fear in their eyes. These warriors had faced death many times. But death you could see. Death you could fight. This was something else entirely. As troops moved into the town to search for clues, they found strange things. A child's toy sitting on a windowsill, family photographs on walls, clothes still hanging in closets, meals half-eaten on tables. The humans who lived here had not fled. They had been living normal lives. Families, children, ordinary people, and now they were gone. But where? A scout team was sent to explore deeper into the settlement. 8 soldiers, all experienced, all well-armed. They checked in every 5 minutes as ordered. Then they missed a check. Then another. A rescue team raced to their last known position. They found only equipment. 8 sets of weapons, armor, and gear, all arranged in a neat pile in the center of a small plaza. No soldiers, No blood. No clue what had happened. Kethral felt his scales growing pale. He opened a communication channel to the Valari Collective. When their representative appeared on screen, Kethral did not bother with polite greetings. "What did you not tell me about this place?" The representative looked uncomfortable. "I do not understand your question." "You understand perfectly. What happened to the mercenaries who came before me?" Silence. Then the representative sighed. 6 months ago, we hired another force. 8,000 soldiers. The finest mercenary army money could buy. They landed on Talaxis 7 to remove the human colonists. He paused. None of them returned. We received no distress calls. No messages. When we sent a ship to investigate, they found only empty camps and equipment arranged in neat piles. The humans had rebuilt their settlements and were living there as if nothing had happened. 8,000 soldiers, gone without a trace. Kethral cut the communication and stood in silence. Around him, his officers waited for orders. In the distance, he could hear his soldiers talking nervously among themselves. The word was spreading. Everyone knew now. They were not the first army to come here. That night, things got worse. Equipment began to fail. Weapons powered down for no reason. Food rations were found contaminated with something that caused horrible nightmares but did no real physical harm. Soldiers woke screaming from visions of darkness and hunting creatures. Worst of all were the footprints. Human boot prints found inside sealed tents, inside locked vehicles, inside spaces no intruder should have been able to enter. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. Kethral's army was not fighting an enemy. They were being hunted by ghosts. 3 days after landing, Kethral's army had lost 200 soldiers. Not in battle, not in combat, just gone. Vanished like smoke in the wind. The survivors were terrified. Some had stopped sleeping entirely. Others jumped at every shadow, firing their weapons at nothing. Then came the capture. A patrol found what they thought was a human scout. A figure in gray clothing, moving through the rocks outside the camp. They chased it, cornered it, and brought it back in chains. Kethral rushed to see this first real evidence that humans actually existed on this moon. But when they removed the hood from the prisoner's head, they found only a machine, a remote-controlled puppet made to look like a human. It had cameras for eyes and speakers for a mouth. The speakers crackled to life. "You wanted to understand what you are facing," said a calm voice. "I will explain." Kethral wanted to destroy the machine, but something made him hesitate. He needed information. He needed to know his enemy. "Speak then," he said. "My species comes from a world called Earth," the voice began. "You call such worlds death worlds, places where life is hard, where survival is not guaranteed. Earth tried to kill us for 4 billion years. The predators hunted us, the diseases attacked us, the weather froze us and burned us. The ground shook beneath our feet and opened to swallow us. Everything on our planet was designed to end us." The voice paused. Around Kethral, his officers listened in complete silence. "We survived. Not because we were the strongest, not because we were the fastest, not because we had natural weapons like claws or venom. We survived because we adapted. We became something new. Our bodies learned to fight disease in ways no other species can match. Our bones grew dense from our heavy gravity. Our hearts pump blood so efficiently that we can chase prey for hours, for days, until they collapse from exhaustion. We call it persistence hunting. We do not need to be faster than our prey. We just need to never stop." Kethral thought of his missing soldiers, the way they vanished one by one. No battles, no chases, just patience, just waiting. "But our bodies are only part of what we became," the voice continued. "Our minds changed too. We learned to work together in ways that go beyond simple communication. A human pack, what we call a family, will die for each other without hesitation. We do not abandon our own. We do not retreat from threats to our children. When something threatens a human family, that threat faces not one human, but all of them. United, coordinated, absolutely committed to the destruction of whatever endangered their loved ones." The machine's eyes glowed brighter. "You came here to take our home. You came to threaten our families, our children. Do you understand now why that was a mistake?" Kethral's throat felt dry. "You are trying to scare us." "No. I am trying to save you. You have one last chance to leave. Take your ships. Go back to whatever world you came from. Tell everyone what you learned here. Tell them that human space is not to be entered. Tell them that the cost of fighting Deathworlders is not worth any payment, and if we stay, then you will be erased, not defeated, not beaten, erased. We will hunt you until none of you remain. We will leave no bodies for your families to bury, no records of your brave last stand. You will simply cease to exist. The galaxy will forget your names. It will be as if you never lived at all. The transmission ended. The machine went dark. Kethral stood still for a long moment. His officers watched him, waiting for orders. He could feel the fear radiating from them. They wanted to run. They wanted to take the humans' offer and flee, but Kethral's pride would not let him. He had come too far. He had promised glory. He could not return home as a coward who ran from farmers and miners. "We attack at dawn," he announced. "Full offensive. Every soldier, every weapon. We will find these humans, and we will crush them." His officers exchanged worried looks but said nothing. That night, Kethral barely slept. When he did, he dreamed of eyes watching him from the darkness. Human eyes, patient eyes. Eyes that had been watching prey for millions of years and had learned exactly when to strike. The attack began as the sun rose. 3,000 soldiers moved toward the central settlement in perfect formation. They had tanks, they had air support, they had the finest weapons money could buy. For the first hour, everything went well. They encountered light resistance. Small groups of humans who fired a few shots and then retreated. Kethral smiled. The humans were falling back. They were winning. They pushed forward, took more ground. The central settlement was close now. Victory was near. Then the trap closed. The humans had been herding them, guiding them like animals into a slaughtering ground. And now, from every direction, death came with patient, calculating precision. Kethral realized too late that Moruk had been right. The humans did not fight wars. They conducted erasures, and the erasure had begun. The counterattack came from everywhere at once. Kethral had studied military tactics from 100 different species. He knew about formations and strategies and battle doctrines. Nothing had prepared him for this. The humans did not fight in lines or groups. They moved like water, flowing around his forces, appearing and disappearing without pattern. One moment a position was clear. The next moment, humans emerged from holes in the ground, from buildings that had seemed empty, from rocks that had been there all along. They fired with terrible accuracy, then vanished before his soldiers could return fire. "Where are they coming from?" one of his officers screamed. They were coming from tunnels. Networks of passages dug beneath the ground that connected every part of the settlement. The humans had been living under his army's feet the entire time, watching, waiting, learning exactly where every soldier stood. Kethral watched his heavy armor, the pride of his army, get destroyed piece by piece. The massive tanks should have been unstoppable. They had shields that could resist energy weapons. They had armor that could survive direct hits from missiles. But the humans did not try to destroy the tanks from a distance. Instead, they ran toward them. Kethral could not believe what he was seeing. Small groups of humans sprinting directly at the war machines, moving faster than any species their size should be able to move. They dodged fire with reflexes that seemed impossible. They reached the tanks and attached explosives to weak points that should not have been visible. Then they jumped away. The explosions were precise, calculated. They destroyed the tanks but left the humans untouched. They had measured the exact distance needed to survive their own bombs. "They are insane," an officer whispered beside Kethral. "They run toward death." No, Kethral realized. They were not insane. They just did not fear death the way other species did. 4 billion years of evolution had taught them that survival sometimes required risk, that protecting your pack meant putting yourself in danger, that a threat to your family was worth any sacrifice. His army began to break. Veterans who had never retreated started running. They threw down their weapons and fled toward the landing zones. Some of them made it. Most did not. What horrified Kethral most was how the humans treated those who surrendered. He expected brutality. He expected torture and execution. That was how mercenary wars worked. Instead, the humans simply disarmed the surrendering soldiers. They gave them water. They treated their wounds. They told them calmly that they would be released after the fighting ended. This mercy was more terrifying than cruelty would have been. It meant the humans were not fighting out of rage or hatred. They were not emotional. They were simply removing a threat with cold, patient efficiency. There was no anger to appeal to, no hatred to reason with, just a species doing what 4 billion years had taught them to do: eliminate dangers to their families. Kethral tried to contact his fleet in orbit. The communication was poor, full of static and interference. Through the broken connection, he learned that his ships were under attack too. How? He demanded. We have orbital superiority. We control the space around this moon. The answer came in fragments. Human boarding parties. They had reached the ships somehow, not through the airlocks, which were guarded and sealed. They had crawled through maintenance passages, tiny tunnels meant for repair robots, spaces too small for any armored soldier to fit. But humans were not armored. They were soft, flexible. They could squeeze through spaces that seemed impossible, and once inside, they moved through the ships like ghosts, sabotaging systems, cutting power, eliminating crews. 3 of Kethral's 12 ships went dark in a single hour. The others panicked. Ship captains began jumping to hyperspace, fleeing the battle, abandoning the ground forces to their fate. Kethral screamed orders at them to stay, but they did not listen. The fleet scattered into the void, leaving him stranded on a moon that had become a killing ground. By afternoon, Kethral had maybe 400 soldiers left from his original 3,000. They were surrounded, cut off, low on ammunition and hope. He led them toward the last evacuation shuttle, fighting through territory that had been safe just hours ago. The humans were everywhere now. They attacked in small groups, killed precisely, and melted back into the shadows before anyone could react. Kethral's army shrank with every kilometer. 400 became 300. 300 became 200. Every time he looked back, there were fewer soldiers behind him. The humans were not trying to stop them, he realized. They were thinning the herd, taking soldiers from the edges, reducing the group one by one. Patient, methodical, exactly like predators hunting prey. By the time Kethral reached the evacuation shuttle, he had fewer than 100 soldiers left. They piled into the vessel, sealing the doors, lifting off from that cursed moon. As the shuttle rose into the sky, Kethral looked down at Talaxis 7. The surface was quiet, peaceful, as if nothing had happened, as if 3,000 soldiers had not just been erased from existence. He understood now why the veterans had been afraid. He understood why Mhoruk had tried to warn him. The humans had let them go, let them escape on purpose, and Kethral knew exactly why. They wanted survivors. They wanted witnesses. They wanted someone to go back and tell the galaxy what happened when you threatened a Deathworlder's home. 6 months later, Kethral stood before the Mercenary Guild Tribunal on Korath Prime. The Great Hall was silent. Thousands of warriors from hundreds of species filled the viewing galleries. They had all heard rumors about what happened on Talaxis 7. Now they would hear the truth. Kethral looked different from the proud young captain who had taken the contract. His scales had faded to a dull gray. His eyes had a distant look, like someone staring at something no one else could see. He moved slowly, carefully, like a creature that expected death to come from every shadow. He was one of 31 survivors. 3,000 soldiers had gone to Talaxis 7. 31 came back. Tell us what happened, the tribunal leader commanded. Kethral opened his mouth. For a moment, no words came. Then, slowly, he began to speak. He told them everything. The warnings he had ignored. The soldiers who vanished in the night. The trap that had swallowed his army. The humans who fought like no species he had ever seen. The cold efficiency of the erasure. They let us go, he said finally. His voice was barely a whisper now. At the end, when we were surrounded, when they could have killed every last one of us, they stopped. A human commander came to speak with me, under a white flag. The tribunal leaned forward. What did the human say? Kethral closed his eyes, remembering. She said they did not want to fight us. They did not want to fight anyone. But their ancestors had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every single day. The predators, the diseases, the disasters, everything on Earth wanted humans dead. And over millions of years, that pressure shaped them into something the galaxy has never seen before. He opened his eyes and looked at the assembled warriors. She told me that war means different things to different species. To most of us, war is politics, a way to gain territory or resources or power. We fight until one side wins and then we stop. We take prisoners. We negotiate peace. We move on. Kethral shook his head slowly. Humans are not like that. To them, war is survival. When something threatens their families, their children, their homes, they do not think about politics or territory. They think about one thing only: making sure that threat can never hurt them again. They do not fight to win. They fight to destroy. Completely. Permanently. They leave nothing behind that could ever threaten them again. The hall was completely silent. The human commander told me something else, Kethral continued. She said the force I faced on Talaxis 7 was not their military. It was their militia. Farmers, miners, teachers, ordinary people who picked up weapons because someone threatened their children. She said, I had faced the weakest fighters humanity had to offer. He looked directly at the tribunal leaders. His eyes were empty, broken. She told me to pray to whatever gods I believe in that I never face their actual military. She said their professional soldiers train their entire lives for war. They have weapons and tactics that make what I experienced look like a children's game. And she said that if any species ever truly threatened humanity, if any power ever attacked their homeworld or tried to destroy their civilization, the humans would not stop until that species was extinct. Not defeated. Extinct. Erased from the universe forever. Kethral fell silent. No one in the hall spoke. They let me live so I could tell you this, he finished. They wanted the galaxy to know. They are not aggressive. They do not want empire. They do not want conquest. They just want to live in peace with their families. But if anyone threatens that peace, if anyone harms their children or attacks their homes, they will become something ancient and terrible. They will become the apex predators of a death world, and they will erase the threat until nothing remains. The tribunal deliberated for only a few minutes. When they returned, they announced a new addition to the Mercenary Guild's code. Human space was now designated as a no-contract zone. Any mercenary who took a job against human forces would be expelled from the guild. Forever. Within a week, the story had spread across the galaxy. Within a month, every mercenary hall, every military academy, every warrior culture had heard about Talaxis 7. The word Deathworlder became a warning, a reason to walk away, a name that made even the bravest soldiers choose a different fight. The Valari Collective never did get their moon back. They did not even try. Some resources were not worth the cost. On Talaxis 7, life returned to normal. The tunnels were sealed. The defenses were hidden. The farmers went back to farming. The miners went back to mining. The teachers went back to teaching. In a small schoolyard near the central settlement, human children played and laughed under the warm sun. Their parents watched from nearby, smiling softly at the simple joy of peaceful life. But in every home, cleaned and ready, never far from reach, the rifles waited. The humans hoped they would never need them again. They hoped the galaxy had learned its lesson. But if another threat ever came, if another army ever tried to take their home, the farmers and miners and teachers would pick up those rifles again. They would disappear into their tunnels. They would become patient, hunting shadows, and the erasure would begin once more, because that was what 4 billion years of survival had taught them. That was what being a Deathworlder meant. They did not start fights, but they always finished them. The galaxy had been warned.